Good morning, church. It's so good to see you all here today. So glad you could be here. Good morning to those of you joining us online. If you're able, we would love to invite you to stand as we sing this first song to start our morning here together. Seated.
Good morning. When in doubt, the kids come through. Thank you, kids, for bringing the energy. Good morning. My name is Jeremy. I'm the pastor here of the Grove Cottage Grove, and it is so good to be with you on this December 11th morning as we continue to get ready for Christmas. We are a brand new church that exists to grow goodness. So we hope that every time that you are in this room with us, every time that you're watching with us online because you're far away or sick or just need the extra time this morning, whether it's during the week and you're interacting with us in a variety of different ways, we hope that you're experiencing some healing, wholeness, and beauty in your life as a part of that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jordan, and I'm one of the worship leaders here at the Grove. I would like to bring your attention to the little handout that you were given on your way in. On the inside, there's a sheet for you to fill out. This is a great opportunity for you to give us your contact information, and then on the back, you can check in some boxes for the things that you're interested in knowing a little bit more about. Also, on the inside of the little handout, in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a spot that you can learn more about giving at the Grove, and there's lots of different opportunities and ways to give here at the Grove. So there's online, in person. We ask that those, along with these handouts, get placed in the basket on the back table as you leave.
On the back hand of the handout, it was upside down and it was front. On the back of the handout, we have our three most important things for you to know this month. So these are the three announcements we're going to continue to hit up on every single week because they're the things that you need to do or know about or act upon, okay? So the first one is, we are, believe it or not, in this Christmas season. There's a lot that's going on as a part of that. Number one, as you are in the room today, we have our worship wall, our new worship wall activity, which we rolled out last week. It is back there. There's directions up on the wall, but basically there's directions for how to make an ornament, something that you do while you make that ornament, and then when you finish that ornament, you can come up here and hang it up on this tree up here. However, the ornaments and all of the things that go into the ornaments are limited, and so we're asking people, especially kids, especially Peter's kids, if you can do it one time over the course of this season, and then allow everybody else who wants to participate in it the opportunity to do that, so there's enough supplies, that would be fantastic. So that's the first thing to know about Christmas season. The second thing is we have a bunch of different stuff that's going on over the weeks leading up to Christmas. Immediately following the service today, because it's the second Sunday of the month, we always do something immediately after worship, which we call Grove Gathering. It's a reason to stay after, linger, and do something fun alongside other people who consider this their church home. Today, we have Christmas cookies and lots of things to decorate them. So each person is going to get the opportunity to decorate Christmas cookies, and there is going to be a Christmas cookie because it's going to be a competition, and there's going to be prizes. I don't know who's judging. I don't know what they're using to judge them, and I don't know what the prizes are. But there will be Christmas cookies, there will be judges, there will be prizes for the best designs. So that's the first thing. Then next week, so Sunday, December 18th, we've got two different things going on. We have our Ugly Sweater Sunday. You do not have to have an ugly sweater. However, if you don't have an ugly sweater, we ask that you don't show up wearing a sweater. We do not want to insult your beautiful sweater, assuming that you're wearing it because you think it's ugly. Okay? There will be prizes for that as well, and a variety of different things that are given out for that. The other thing that's happening next week that you really won't want to miss out on is we have our kids program. Kids are going to be singing, leading us in a part of worship. They're going to be practicing today. You're not going to want to miss out on that. If you are a family with some of those kids, invite people to. Invite grandparents, invite family members, invite friends to be able to come and participate in that. So that is the 18th. Last thing to know, I know, there's a lot. It's Christmas, right? We are in the process of buying poinsettias or allowing people to purchase poinsettias. Often poinsettias are purchased as an opportunity to remember someone. And so we are collecting donations to be able to purchase poinsettias over the next week. Today is the last day to be able to do that. If you're interested in doing that, there are sign-up sheets right next to all of those wonderful cookies and coffee, right next to the kitchen window, where you can go afterwards, fill that out, and then those are going to be purchased this week. Again, today is the last day in order to do that. Okay, that's just leading up to Christmas. The next one is actual Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We are going to have two worshiping opportunities on those days. On Christmas Eve, we're going to be here at 5:30 p.m., and we're going to be singing and reading through the Christmas story and having families participate in that. And then the following day, which is a Sunday morning, it is Christmas Day, 10 a.m., as always, any other Sunday, we're going to be worshiping here. We are telling people, again, you don't have to do this, but because Christmas morning can kind of be chaotic, we are inviting you, if you want to just roll out of bed, unwrap your presents, leave all of the wrapping paper on the floor, leave your pajamas on, and show up for worship. Okay? That is an option. You don't have to do that. If you want to show up in a suit and tie, you're welcome to. Many of us are going to be in pajamas, just so you know. So again, Christmas Eve, 5:30 p.m., Christmas Day, 10 a.m. And then the last, pop-up choir. We're going to have a choir that day. If you are interested in participating in that choir, you can let Katie know. It's not going to be like there's extra practice in advance. You're not going to have to come different days in order to participate in that. If you want to know, or if you want to participate in that, you can let Katie know. She'll send you the information. She'll send you the songs to be practicing to be able to perform that evening. Okay, third thing. we'll keep it short and simple. Season of giving. As we go to the end of the year, this is often a time when people are trying to figure out where they can support organizations that are doing good in their communities, where they can direct some of their year-end giving. And we would simply ask that you consider the Grove as you are making those decisions for yourselves. This is an important time of the year for lots of organizations and especially churches as we try to not only meet the budget for this year, but also create momentum as we head into the next year. So as you're making those year-end decisions, please consider the Grove. Okay.
So as you can see, kids are very valued here at the Grove. There's lots of great opportunities for them inside the pews. You can see the clipboards with the activity sheets or coloring sheets. Off to the side, we have our wiggle space where they can decorate our Christmas tree. And then also we have Grove Kids where in a little while we're going to sing a song and they can all head on out. There's the nursery for ages 6 weeks to 3 years old, and then Grove Kids for 4 years old to 5th grade. If your kids have not been sent to the nursery or Grove Kids, we just ask that you fill out one of these registration cards so that we have your information if something happens during Grove Kids.
And then today, we are having communion today, and usually we have the kids come back in to participate in communion. That's not going to happen today simply because we have the program next week, and our leaders want extra time to be able to practice with the kids. So, parents, just so you know, the kids will not be coming back in at the end of the service.
Up next, we have our connection point. This is a great opportunity to get to know those around you. So the question for today is, what is your favorite Christmas movie? So why don't you go ahead and stand up, find somebody that you don't know super well, introduce yourself, and chat about this question.
All right, we'll have folks find your seats.
Hi, everyone. We are the Flage family, and we are reading the Advent candle Joy. People of God, Isaiah promised a servant God who would come to save us. The Savior will be a light to the nations. People everywhere are eager for the justice he will teach and the joy he will bring. We will see prison doors open and people set free. Today, we light a candle to symbolize the joy we anticipate. We hope in the one who will come. We pray for God's peace to prevail. Our joy will come with God's servant.
People of God, great change lies ahead. We wait to see it with joy.
Kids, we would love to dismiss you now to Grove Kids as we sing the song. If you know the words, please join along. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. And if you're able, we'd like to invite you to sing. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of Israel. Oh, come, let
Take a seat. I forgot to note, obviously, most of you are familiar with Legend. She is not Katie, though. You may have noticed that. This is a different person up here. Katie and her family are on a little staycation this week. Again, Christmas is a super busy time of year, especially for someone who does music. So this was just a good opportunity for her and the family to be away, to be able to rest up and get ready for Christmas. So we're excited for her to have that opportunity, and also excited to have Legend leading us once again. So this is the second week. It's actually the third week of Advent because we had to cancel because we had so many people sick 2 weeks ago. This is our second week of celebrating Advent here. And the second week of our series, which we've simply been calling Blessings, which is all about paying attention to the ways in which God shows up in unexpected ways. Now, last week, after kicking off Advent and talking a whole lot about Advent, I had someone come up to me after the service, and they said, "Can I ask you a question?" Yes, of course you can ask me a question. And they said, "What is Advent?" And I gave a good response. I think it was a good response, but the response that I had in my head was, well, shoot, I screwed up. One of the things that I'm really adamant about is that I don't want to use language, coded language, insider language, without defining it, because the last thing that I want, it is not a win if someone shows up and we use words assuming that everyone knows what it means, and it means that that person thinks that they're the only ones who don't understand it, when it's probably likely that many people are in that situation. And so I apologize to that person, and I want to offer an apology today. If that's you, it's very possible that you also don't know what Advent is. You might use the word even, or hear us use the word, and you just move on because you don't want to ask the question, well, what actually is Advent? So I want to apologize, offer that apology to you, but then also use this as an opportunity, because we are in this season of Advent, to actually talk today about what on earth Advent is, okay? So that's kind of where we're going to be spending our time today. Advent, let's start with a definition. So our denomination, the United Methodist Church, offers this as a definition. Like if you Google, what is Advent, United Methodist Church, this is what comes up. The season of Advent, which comes from the Latin word adventus, meaning coming or visit, begins 4 Sundays before Christmas and ends on Christmas Eve. Advent is the beginning of the church year for Christians. During Advent, we prepare for and anticipate the coming of Christ. We remember the longing of Jews for a Messiah and our own longing for and need for forgiveness, salvation, and a new beginning. Even as we look back and celebrate the birth of Jesus in a humble stable in Bethlehem, we also look forward to anticipating the second coming of Christ as the fulfillment of all that was promised by his first coming. Is everybody still awake? It's a pretty bland, it says what it is, but it's a pretty bland definition. So rather than just giving you a definition, I want to give you an illustration for you to think of when you think of this season of Advent, which is supposed to be a time of anticipating a coming, an arrival, okay? So I am the youngest cousin in my entire dad's side of the family. Youngest by far, actually. The majority of my cousins, like when I was in elementary school, were in their late teens or even 20s, which makes family gatherings really interesting, being the runt of the family and the one who often gets picked on, whether you're aware of it or not. Notice I said interesting, not fun, because while my cousins, my older cousins, they certainly had fun with me, I was not having much fun with them. So there was this one year, it was one Christmas Eve, we would always get together on Christmas Eve on my dad's side of the family for dinner at my grandma's house. And of course, there was like the kids' table, and it's like me and my brothers who are just a few years older than me, and then the kids who are in their late teens and early 20s. And my cousins decided that it was a great opportunity to reveal this fact to me that Christmas begins at 12:01 a.m. Did you know this? Christmas Day begins at 12:01 a.m. So when Christmas begins, that's when you get to open your presents. So it was a really good idea for me to acknowledge that fact that Christmas begins at 12:01 a.m., and that's when you get to open your presents. So I ought to go tell my parents at 12:01 a.m. that it was Christmas and it was time to open presents. So I should have known better, but I didn't, apparently, because I thought this was the greatest idea in the world. And I was pretty good at staying up late at night. And so I go home after Christmas Eve, I go to bed, I go and lay in my bed and wait until that time. It's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, finally midnight, and then the longest minute of the entire day, waiting until that clock, that digital clock of mine went from 12:00 to 12:01. And I jumped out of bed and I ran into my parents' room and I had to inform them it is Christmas, it is time to open presents. I had all of this excitement and anticipation building within me. How could I possibly wait any longer? Well, somehow my parents were able to get me calmed down, were able to be patient with me, probably more patient than I would be with my kids, to be honest. They were able to get me calmed down to explain to me, yeah, it's technically Christmas, but that doesn't mean that you're going to open presents. And they were able to get me back to bed, somehow get me to sleep until it was actually morning when we could wake up and get to bed, and get to opening presents. I had all of this anticipation and excitement, and yet it just had to wait. That is the image that I want you to imagine when you think about Advent. This time of coming, this time of excitement and anticipation. But more than that, I want you to multiply that by like 1,000,000. When you think about Jesus' earliest followers and even the people who were coming hundreds of years before that, who were anticipating and excited for but uncertain about the coming of God and interacting with humanity and the world in a definitional way. This is the story of the Old Testament in many respects. This is the story of the people of God, this time of excitement and anticipation, and yet the uncertainty of whether this time is actually ever going to arrive. Advent is about a pipe dream in some respects, because for the people of Israel living more than 2,000 years ago, they were taught by their own experience, by their understanding of how the world actually worked, that maybe the coming of God in a history-defining way was not something that was actually going to happen. Okay? And one of the indications of this, we have this story running throughout the Bible, right? Well, one of the time capsules of this theology and psychology of an excitement and anticipation, but an uncertainty of whether anything was ever going to change, we get in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is one of these examples of a book that was probably actually not written by a single person in a single sitting. It was probably written by a handful of people, maybe perhaps even over a couple hundred years. But using this ancient convention where even though there were multiple authors, the idea was that when you read this book, you had this person in mind that might be writing it down. And so for the book of Isaiah, of course, the authors who are writing this down want you to think of Isaiah. Thank you. They want you to think of this guy, Isaiah. So Isaiah was a prophet. Isaiah was a public truth teller living in the kingdom of Israel at about the 8th century BCE. And early on, Isaiah was sent to the kings of Israel in order to try to convince them that they were going down a wrong path and to try to convince them that they needed to change their ways or things were going to go really badly for them and for the entire kingdom. Meanwhile, he's also trying to convince the everyday people who are living in that kingdom, don't worry, even though things are not good, God has not given up on you, and there are still good things out in front of you for you to be excited for and to anticipate. So that's like the first half of Isaiah, which was probably written by at least one author. But then there's a transition right in the middle where there's this second half of Isaiah that's probably happening after things go poorly. So he had been kind of saying, if we continue to go down this route, things are going to go poorly. Well, things went poorly. Eventually, this empire known as the Assyrian Empire comes in, wipes Israel off the map, exiles its people, spreads them throughout their empire. And so, like, the culture, the identity is completely decimated. And so the second half of Isaiah is this second author who is now on the other side of that exile, trying to grapple with the implications. And now trying again to go back to God's people and say, God has not abandoned you. There is still good out in front of us. There are still things for us to be excited for and anticipating, even and especially when it doesn't seem like there is. And in the book of Isaiah, it all kind of comes to a head in chapter 42, which we'll be reading 9 verses from this morning. So this is Isaiah 42, 1 through 9. Here is my servant whom I support. This is God speaking through Isaiah. My chosen one in whom I take pleasure. I have placed my spirit on him. He will make just decrees for the nations. He will not cry out or shout. He will not publicize himself in the streets. A crushed reed he will not break. A dim wick he will not extinguish. He will faithfully make just decrees. He will not grow dim or be crushed before establishing justice on the earth. The coastlands will wait in anticipation for his decrees. This is what the true God, the Lord, says, the one who created the sky and stretched it out, the one who fashioned the earth and everything that lives on it, the one who gives breath to the people on it and life to those who live on it. I, the Lord, officially commission you. I take hold of your hand. I protect you and make you a covenant mediator for people and a light to the nations, to open blind eyes, to release prisoners from dungeons, those who live in darkness from prisons. I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not share my glory with anyone else or the praise due me with idols. Look, my earlier predictive oracles have come to pass. Now I announce new events. Before they begin to occur, I will reveal them to you. This is one of the passages in the book of Isaiah that scholars refer to as a servant song. There's actually a handful of these that appear in the entire book. This is a servant song. So Isaiah is standing here speaking to these people who have gone through this traumatic experience, and he again is trying to say, look, there are still good things out in front of you, out in front of us, for us to anticipate, for us to be excited about. But what you need to know is that this is not just like some cosmic movement of the universe being on our side. This is going to happen in and through a specific person. God is personal. God is going to continue to act through a specific person, a specific servant. This is a servant that is going to be filled with the Spirit of God, that is going to act justly, who is going to bring you closer to God, which is going to make the things that are wrong to be right once again. This is someone who is going to rule on your behalf, not just for their own benefit. Now imagine that you are the people of Israel spread throughout the empire at this point, who went through this traumatic experience, who've learned how the world actually works, and you are hearing these words. You know what it's like to live under corrupt political leaders, corrupt religious leaders, corrupt systems, a world that feels like it's crumbling in on itself. That is your lived experience, and yet you're hearing these words from this guy. Are you going to believe that? Could it possibly be that is true, that a person like that a leader like that a God like that is actually possible and real? Is that worth holding out hope for? Well, Isaiah kind of anticipates that this is going to be the response, and so he circles back and he repeats many of those same things, but he begins it with saying, listen, if you don't believe me, believe the God who is saying these words. This is, again, what he says. This is what the true God, the Lord, says, the one who created the sky and stretched it out. If you don't believe me, believe that. Believe that God. The one who fashioned the earth and everything that lives on it. The one who gives breath to people on it. The life to those who live on it. If you don't believe me, if you don't even believe these words, believe in the God that has done these things in the past. If you simply have to will yourself into believing something that feels unbelievable, use that as an opportunity to steal away joy in a place and in a time when it seems like joy is absent. What would your response be? Now, we know that many, if not most of the people hearing these words simply found them unbelievable. And quite honestly, it makes sense. They had lived through this traumatic experience. They had been given all of these promises about the way that things were supposed to go, and this was their lived experience with the world, and they simply couldn't deal with it anymore. They couldn't bring themselves to believe it. And yet we also know, because we get these words passed down to us, we get these stories passed down to us, that there were people, maybe even just a handful of people, who said, you know what, it does seem unbelievable, but maybe we need to will ourselves into believing that this is possible. Maybe despite the evidence, we need to steal away some joy and say, maybe, possibly, this could be possible. This world, this leader, this God could be possible, and maybe that is worth leaning into. Maybe there is something out there for us to continue to have excitement and anticipation for. Maybe there is yet an Advent. Now, we are living 2,700 years after these words. And yet, in some ways, I feel like Advent, that idea of God's coming definitively in human history, in our world, this idea that there are still good things out in front of us, 2,700 years later, I feel like Advent maybe means more now than it ever could. I mean, think about the experience that those Israelites went through. We know a thing or two about corrupt leaders, right? Politicians, religious leaders. We know a thing or two about corrupt systems that hold people down. We know about a world that feels like it's crumbling in on itself. We know, perhaps even, a feeling of God-forsakenness. We know many of those feelings that those people were feeling 2,700 years ago and half a world away. And yet we stand on this other side of that first Advent. As those of us who are followers of Jesus, we're able to look back and say, we not only have this definitive action in human history through this person, this God-man named Jesus, but we also are able to look with eagerness and expectation to this second Advent. This passage, Isaiah 42, you may have never actually read the whole passage, but it very well might seem familiar to you because Jesus' earliest followers pretty quickly picked up this and said, that sounds a whole lot like this Jesus guy we've been following. Maybe we need to use some of these words and project them onto Jesus. Jesus is marching around talking about setting people free. Talking about, not only talking about, but helping blind people to see, acting definitively in human history. Maybe this is that coming, that thing that we have been looking forward to and anticipating. And yet we also, 2,000 years later, have this expectation that, yes, God acted definitively in human history in that time, and yet we also are looking forward to this second Advent, this second coming, when God will show up and act definitively in human history with the return of Jesus. And you might be hearing that and thinking, you lost your mind. That might be way too weird for you. You might have all of this lived experience with knowing, like, this is how the world actually works. This is my experience within the world. That does not really fit with my understanding of how the world works. And yet I would encourage you, and I am trying to encourage myself in this season, to steal away joy where I can, to will myself into believing some of the unbelievable things, trusting and hoping perhaps, maybe, possibly, that God is this good, that the world can be this good, that Jesus is that good. And holding out that hope, holding out that joy for a second advent, no matter how unbelievable. Often we think that we participate in things, we practice things because we have very strong beliefs that inform the things that we do. So often in like protest movements, the idea is that you get involved in a protest because you have really strong convictions that inform that protest. It's actually more often the case that it's the opposite. People get involved in things because they're exciting, because other people they know are doing them, and it is through their involvement, through their practicing, that new beliefs, maybe beliefs and convictions that were previously unbelievable, start to form and solidify. The same is true with this whole idea of following Jesus. The same is true with this idea of Advent and looking forward to the second Advent. And fortunately, for 2,000 years, followers of Jesus have had this practice to look forward with excitement and anticipation for something that kind of seems a little bit unbelievable. Maybe you're familiar with this practice. It's called communion. Some people call it the Lord's Supper. Other people call it the Eucharist. In some of the last moments that Jesus had with his closest followers, the day before he was killed, he gathered with them for this meal. And this meal was actually a retelling of a story when God acted definitively in human history on behalf of God's people. And yet, as he was gathered with them for this meal, he twisted the elements a little bit. And he said, actually, yes, God has acted previously in human history in a definitive way, but God is going to continue to act and will act going forward in a way that you can anticipate and you can be excited about. And so he took these normal everyday elements. He took a loaf of bread and he broke it in half and said, imagine for a moment that this is my body which is going to break for you. Do this as often as you eat this in remembrance of me. And then he took this cup of wine. He said, imagine for a moment that this is not just a cup of wine, but it is my blood which is poured out for you. Whenever you drink this, do it in remembrance of me, because I want you to continue to rehearse this so that you can look forward with eagerness and expectation and excitement that I am going to come again someday. You practice this meal, you practice this thing in order to hold up that eagerness and excitement for a second advent. So in just a moment, we're going to participate in that. We're going to practice this, folks, no matter how unbelievable you might find it to be. And so in just a few moments, we'll have you come up, and we have these cups that are full of these littler cups. These continue to be, even if they're not COVID times, they're flu times and RSV times. Yeah, boo, all three of those. And so rather than having a cup that's full of juice and then you're dipping things in and mixing all sorts of germs, we're going to send you back to your seats with one of these guys. So we'll invite you to come up, and then we will say a quick blessing over you and then hand you one of these cups. On the top, there's a thin layer of film. You'll peel that back, and there's a wafer in there. The wafer is gluten-free, so if you are gluten-free, you do not need to worry about that. And then the second layer, you'll remove that, and then inside there is grape juice. It is not wine, so if you are in recovery, you do not have to worry about that either. Everyone is welcome to participate. You do not have to be a member of this church. You do not have to be a member of the United Methodist Church. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not have to be 100% convinced of everything. All we ask is that you come forward, you practice this, you participate in this, because one of the best ways to experience the joy and the grace of God is simply to practice it and to participate in it. So with that, we've already got Miranda up here. I'll invite you to come forward.
To invite you to keep responding, keep talking with the Lord. And you're more than welcome to sit or stand, whatever you need to do to just be in the headspace to be with Him. You give life, you are love. shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, Lord. Great are you. Great are you.
So today we got to come up here and light the candle of joy for Advent. And today's theme was all about joy. I am filled with a ton of joy today. Last week at this time, we were supposed to be doing a baby baptism, and baby Ivy was hospitalized for RSV and was unable to be here. Baby Ivy is here today, folks. So much joy. I hope that you are full of joy as well in this season. It is a joy to be with you, not only today, but each and every week. It is a joy to lead this budding new church. It's also a joy to think about what's ahead of us. So again, immediately afterwards, we've got cookies out there for you to be able to decorate and try to win some sort of prize for. Then next week, of course, we have ugly sweaters. Do you have your ugly sweaters yet? This is just an example. This is not the one I'm going to wear next week. Baby Yoda says, "What child is this?" This is not ugly. This is pretty cool. Again, you don't have to have an ugly sweater. If you do, show up. If you don't wear a sweater. That's the only thing that I will say. That's the only instruction I'm going to give. And then we also have the kids program, so you're not going to want to miss that. We encourage you to invite people to come and participate in that as well. So with that, I'm going to have you stand as you're able and extend your hands to receive the blessing. May we, as followers of Jesus, be the kind of people who steal away joy and share it with the world. And may we will ourselves into believing in a second advent and living as if such a God and such a world are actually possible. Let that be so.